In this video, we're going to talk about how Spotify actually pays artists. How do they determine how much a stream is worth, some alternatives to that model, and some impacts if we were to switch model, and some commentary on if things are inherently fair or unfair. And to give you kind of a hint of what we're going to look at in a sec, this is a spreadsheet I made to compare two different revenue models for Spotify, one they're currently using and one that a lot of people say they should be using, and we'll dive in and tweak some numbers in a sec. But first, we have to talk about kind of just general concepts. So right now, the way that Spotify calculates its streams is they look at how much money they generate in a country, they look at how many streams are generated in a country, and they just divide it up. So if there's $1 million that are generated from subscription fees and ad revenue on the Spotify platform, and there's 1 million streams, every stream's worth $1. Obviously, streams are actually worth like a third of a penny, because there's way more streams and there are dollars, but that's how the business model works. And for the sake of this video, we're going to ignore Spotify's overhead costs. Typically, Spotify takes in like 30% of the revenue, which covers like the actual overhead and then profit. Although I'll link to a video here, Spotify actually didn't make a profit for a very long time. And a lot of people say, why can't Spotify just raise the streaming rate? You know, they're making so much money. In reality, they're not. They barely scrape by, believe it or not. And they were actually running in the red for like, I forget, it was like a decade or something. So we can't just raise the streaming payout. You can't just make money from nowhere. It has to come from somewhere. And so that model that I talked about they use right now, it's like they look at all the money in the country, all the streams in the country, and divide it up. That's called the market-centric revenue model, something like that. There's like acronyms and stuff we'll see later. But a lot of people have suggested that they should switch to a user-centric payout model. And that means, let's say you listen to one artist for the whole month of your Spotify subscription. That artist would, again, we're ignoring Spotify's cut. You pay $10 for your subscription. Let's just say that artist will get all $10. In reality, it'd be like $7, but we're just going to assume it's 10. If you listen to two artists equally, mind you, let's 50 streams one artist, 50 streams another artist, each artist would get $5. And a lot of people think that's a lot more fair, and I think I'm leaning in that direction, but we'll actually test some numbers in a sec. Because if you listen to only one artist for a whole month, you're technically giving money to like Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber, because there's just so many more streams that are happening for that. And another side effect is that if you listen to like, I don't know, 100 songs a day, you're actually more valuable to an artist than if you're only streaming one song per day right now. Under the user-centric model, it wouldn't really matter anymore. But there's an impact to this. If you have a bot in a playlist streaming like, tens of thousands of streams a month, if that's even possible, I don't think it is, but, streaming 24/7, they're essentially reducing the stream payout, and they're giving money towards the artist they're streaming on repeat, and they're taking it away from the artist that they're not. So that's one of the biggest impacts, I think, of switching to a user-centric model is it tends to, like, right now, if there's a bunch of bots, they're kind of they're diluting the marketplace, whereas now they'll only be diluting it for the artists that they actually streamed under the user-centric model. A little confusing. Let's just dive into the spreadsheet. I think it'll make more sense to see it. So basically, I'll give you a quick walk through this. I'm assuming that Spotify is made up of 3 people and 3 artists, just to keep things super duper simple. So we have 3 users, one is you. We have 3 artists, one is me and my music. And we have 2 different revenue models. One is the shared or the market-centric model. And the other one is the user-centric model. And these are the individual like amount of money generated per paying user. So, there's some math behind each of these. Basically, it's just what I talked about. We're getting the total amount of money. We're going to do the percentage of streams they generated compared to the total amount of streams on the platform. Under the user-centric model, it's calculated on a per user basis. How many streams they listen to of an artist compared to all the streams they listen to. Do that for each user, add it all up. So when you have 3 different people and 3 artists and each user listens to a different artist entirely, they're exactly the same, right? These $10 to that artist, $10 to that artist, and $10 to artist 3. Under the user-centric model, $10, $10, $10. So pretty much just remember green here, and maybe I'll make this a little bigger. There we go. Under the user-centric model, basically just look at green and blue. Blue is current model, green is user-centric model. Let's say that this person decides in the course of a month to listen to artist 2 1,000 times. Under the current model, even though this artist got the same amount of streams as they did the month before, and this artist got the same amount of streams they did the month before, they're making less now, like 4 times less. So like if let's say January 1 year, this is what happens with those 3 artists and 3 users, and then the next month I'll just do 500. See how much it changes in 1,000. It goes like, now this artist is making 25. Basically, they're taking money away from the other 2 artists because this person just listened to so much more music. Now you can do a similar split, like let's say it was 500 there and 500 there. This person listened to these 2 artists a bunch. This person listened to that one a little. This person listened to that one a little. But now it's like, even though this person got the same amount, the same amount of streams, they're making way less money. And now this person is making more money, and this person's still making more money, but making less because now this person has a total of 600. So let's reset this, and then now let's pay attention to the user-centric. You might have already been looking at it as I was doing that. But so, again, we'll switch this to the 1,000. So this January month, let's look down here at the user-centric, change this to 1,000. It's still exactly the same, right? Which makes a lot more sense. Like if you get the same amount of streams in a month, you're going to make the same amount of money. You're not going to get reduced just because this person decides to stream another artist more. But in this case, you're kind of getting screwed. So this is how it works then. But like now let's do a little bit of split, because obviously this scenario is never going to happen. So let's just say it's actually going to be 500 there and 500 there, just like we had before. So in this case, right now, this person's making the most money, and they're still making the most money here. But this person, nothing changed with them, so they're making the same amount of money. But for this middle person, they're actually making less because their streams are being split across 2 people instead of just being this percentage of the total stream. So it's not 100% like people will always make more money. It's going to kind of skew things depending on the scenarios. It's all on a case-by-case basis, and not everyone is going to win. Of course, the people in the top, very, very top percent, are going to lose some money, but it's not necessarily that every independent artist is going to just magically get more money. It depends on how people divvy up their streams and listening habits throughout the course of a month. But generally, it's going to prevent the problem of people like Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber, they're just so insanely popular and people just listen to their music on repeat. Like they take like 10%, like the top like 10 artists take like the top 10% of all Spotify revenue. It's like crazy, right? And I mean, like that's kind of how the world works, right? Like that's how the economy works. I'm not going to get into a political discussion or anything, but it encourages a lot of different behaviors. Like for example, certain types of music that are longer get penalized, right? Because if someone only listens to classical music and listens to 12-minute pieces, or someone listens to Tool, a progressive metal band, they have very long songs and it's not really optimized for streaming, they're going to get kind of screwed under the shared model, but under the user-centric model, they would benefit. So I think you get the idea of this, right? Like generally for smaller artists, this seems like it'll work better, but it's not always. So now let's look at an article that has some really great research so you can learn a little bit more about this. So this is a study, I found it on Hypebot. And they did a study of Deezer and Spotify. So basically the impact of changing between a user-centric payment model, I'll zoom in a little bit, and a market-centric payment structure. I think they use UCPS and MCPS. So here you can see if switching to a UCPS model compared to the current MCPS model, the top 1 to 10 artists would lose a good amount of money. 17% on Deezer and 12.5% on Spotify. Which sucks for them, but again, it kind of like makes sense. Like if you're not listening to those artists, why should your money go to them? Like back in the day on iTunes or CDs, like if you bought a CD or bought a download, you wouldn't be giving some other artist money. It would only go to that artist, although in reality it would go to like all the labels and distributors and stuff, but it would go towards that one artist, not like a bunch of other artists you don't listen to. So they get screwed, right? 11 to 100, top 11 to 100 artists on the platform, they actually make a little bit more money. So we're actually helping like the top, still helping the top 1% a little bit. We're screwing the top like 0.0001%, but everyone below that essentially gets a boost, especially the people top, basically lower than top 10,000 get the most benefit here, right? Like 5% extra pay on Deezer, 4% extra pay on Spotify. Keep in mind, we're dealing with fractions of a penny here, right? If the stream right now is a third of a cent, now on Spotify, you're going to make a third of a cent plus like 5% of that. So you're going to make like instead of 0.003, well, let's just do the math. Instead of equals 0.003 cents, you're going to make times 1.0, it was like 5 or something, right? An extra 5%. So now you're going to make an extra 0.00015 cents. So this isn't like a crazy increase we're talking about. It's not 4 cents or anything. It's a 5% extra off of the third of a cent. So, but anyway, still, if you're making $1,000 a month or something, $12,000 a year off your streams, which I realize if you're a new artist, that's like crazy talk, right? But like if you're kind of in the middle, $1,000 a month off your streams, that's going to give you an extra $50 a month. Is that math? I think that's math. So yeah, but there's other impacts to this too. Like this is overall for everyone. Now we're gonna scroll down and we're gonna look at how it affects different genres of music, because this was actually very interesting. It makes a lot of sense. Like right now, hip hop is super popular. This will actually demolish hip hop's kind of like stranglehold in the streaming world, which honestly I think is a again, it's a fair thing. I think this is actually probably the best part of it, is that right now, if you're not making one of these genres, you're kind of penalized. Like if you're doing metal, you're doing classical music, if you're doing anything in here, you're getting negatively impacted by these genres. So unfortunately for all you rappers out there, the stream, now again, this isn't going to affect you personally. This is going to affect, since the biggest artists on the platforms tend to be in these genres and generate the most streams, especially since the songs are shorter. It's not going to affect you personally. So don't get all like, this can't happen because I'll make 21% less money. That's not the case. This is just saying on average across everyone, these genres will lose money and these genres will essentially gain that in return, which I think is a much better impact. Like it makes sense for classical music. You have long songs, you have very niche fan bases. It's going to make some of these genres like viable again in the streaming world. Like classical music, longer songs, it's really not terrible for streaming, smaller user base, they get screwed in the current model. Same with metal and a lot of these genres. And in the user-centric model, it'll be a little bit more viable, and it seems fair. So this article, I'm going to link to it in the description. It goes through, there's a bunch of other data in here, like how it affects back catalogs, and they have a lot of talk about the different, these two different models. But generally, I think I'm on the fence of where I think a user-centric payment model is generally fairer for everyone, even if there can be negative impacts. And SoundCloud actually switched to this, I think it was last year, maybe it was this year, which, and they gave all these studies again of like how certain artists are making more money. I'm sure there were artists that were making less, but good on SoundCloud. I normally crap on SoundCloud all day, but like this was a great move for them. It was really kind of step in the right direction. I'd like to see Spotify go in this direction, although I have a feeling that because labels are so heavily entwined in Spotify's history that basically they set the rules for streaming, and it's a lot of the reason why it is the way it is now is because they came in, they only gave them rights to their catalog in exchange for being able to kind of dictate some of the rules. So I'm not hopeful that Spotify will switch. They have said that if all the artists on the platform want it, they'll definitely consider it. It's just going to take some overhead to figure out how to implement it in their back-end reporting and payment structures and stuff like that. Anyways, if you found this video interesting, I have a video on another video on kind of the Spotify and payment and all that stuff like that right there. If you want to learn how I promote my music on Spotify, you can check out this playlist here where I teach a lot about how to use Facebook ads to promote your music on Spotify. Anyways, thank you much for watching, and I'll see you next video. Bye.